Hey guys, so I am making the second video of my Dreadlocks 101, and this topic I want to talk about is how do loops form, and why do they form, and when do they go away. So hopefully I'll cover these adequately. I personally crochet hook my loops away because I don't want them, but I'll do my best to explain kind of what I've experienced with loops and why I think they form, and things you can do about them, or if you should just let them be. So let me take you back to my board. Look how close this is. It's beautiful. Okay, so when you've got your dread, and this information pertains mostly to folks with straight, wavy, and loosely curly hair. If you started your dreads with comb coils or two-strand twists, you're probably never gonna have to worry about loops. This is like more of a straight hair thing. So, on to damn loops. So you've got your dreadlock. Oh, the backwards drawing, that's confusing. And your loose roots section right here. And when you make it, it's this nice cylindrical thing, like these. But over time, the hairs start to, bump into each other and knot up. And this hair is like, yo dog, I'm gonna pull you up higher. And this hair is like, I'm gonna pull you up higher. And I'm gonna pull you up higher. And you just have this mess of little knots all over. And eventually, maybe this side says, I'm gonna pull everyone up way higher. And this side says, I don't want to pull everyone up way higher. I think I'll just stay the way I am. Oh no. I'm forming a loop. So this side goes smaller. I need to make my drawings bigger. So this side goes in smaller and gets tighter, while this side stays a bit looser on this lock. And this may happen all over your locks. This side is gonna get smaller this way, and it's gonna compact, so it's gonna, and as this is happening, your lock is getting shorter, and these hairs stay kind of bulged out. And eventually these pull up into the lock, and over time your loops kind of work their way back into the lock. Your dread is going to be thicker, fuller, and shorter because these loops pull it up so much. And it might stay, I don't know, kind of lumpy, bumpy, but that, in my opinion, adds some character. So you've got all this going on. And when I did some crochet maintenance on this girl who kind of did, she formed her dreads by, I think, backcombing and just let them go. What happened with her dreads was she would have kind of a, a big section, maybe like this. You can't see that, it's right in the glare. So she'd have her dread like this, and it would have started out this way. With your roots attached to the scalp. And what happened was her loops formed on this dread, and they formed so big on one side, they kind of did a this thing while this got shorter, and then her loops folded themselves back onto the dread. So what happened was her dread got shorter, and this loop, gosh, this is looking like a wiener. I don't know how to make this not look like a wiener, so let's all bear with me. So this loop got bigger and bigger, and it buckled, and it went all the way back onto the dread. So it like sucked in this way, which was kind of crazy. So she had a lot of thickening going on. And a way you can treat loops with a crochet hook is, so here's another dread. You got a big loop here. I actually happen to have my crochet hook here. So what you're going to do with this loop is you're going to put the crochet hook side down through the dread. So, and this drawing is not to scale, but you're going to put the hook side down into the dread. And what that's going to do, as you start going in and out, pulling on this loop, it's going to start pulling it in a bit. And it pulls those hairs into the middle. And it pulls this hair into the middle. And then, you know, it pulls this hair into the middle. And all the while, this loop is getting smaller. And then, as you keep crochet hooking in and out, you're going to get a smaller and smaller lump, and eventually it'll just be kind of a tightly packed area, whereas it was once a loop. And this, if you have proper technique and you really have your crochet hooking skill down, you can pull in the most extreme loops. Another way I deal with loops sometimes is to actually snip them just a little bit. So let's say, I'm going to switch colors because this marker is drying out. So let's say you've got your dread here, and it's got this big old loop here, and another, and this loop is kind of going in like this, which is definitely possible on a dread. You're going to have just a few hairs connecting right here. Make sure it's no more than 10 to 20 strands at the most, because once you start snipping, it's going to create a problem. But if you just snip right here, this part can come down and be a bit straighter again. So it'll be more like this with a tiny little snipped part, and your loops will be less dramatic. And at that point, you can again crochet hook the hairs toward the center of the lock like this, and you can make those loops a little bit smoother and a little bit less dramatic. So yeah, and loops are a totally normal part of the locking process, especially for folks with straight hair. Your dread may start out looking, how far can I draw this over? Your dread may start out looking like this, kind of thin, and then it's going to start getting shorter and looping. And believe me, you can get this kind of crazy loops going on. So it'll start looping like this, and these loops are going to pull in, and it will feel almost like your hair is like growing backward into itself. You know, this loop will pull up, and then eventually, and it's not necessarily this dramatic, but eventually you're going to have kind of this tightly compacted, thick, lumpy, and beautiful lock of hair. So as these loops come in, they pull up onto themselves and flip up against the dread all kinds of crazy ways. They tangle into themselves and compress over time. And I have seen some people go from having hair, you know, down to their elbows all the way up to the chin from looping. That's kind of an extreme case, but it can happen. And a way to sort of prevent looping and shrinkage is crochet hooking. And if you crochet hook your dreads about once a month, it's going to prevent this looping and shrinking from occurring, and it's just going to actually just pull the loop back into the dread. So instead of shrinking to compact, it's going to go inward. So you'll be left with a bit thinner dread and maybe not quite as shrunken. However, I noticed as my dreads were approaching 5 months last time, my roots started looping without me kind of doing anything, and I really couldn't do anything about it. And I'll show you my boyfriend's dread, which is now a year old. It's like the oldest dread I've ever had, and it's not even my hair. So, how am I going to show this? So on this dread, it's got this loop formed right here. Can you see that? It's just got this bend in it like this forever. And the tip has also begun to bend. And I crochet hook it, and there is nothing I can do about this kind of loop. So your dreads will probably get a bit lumpy as time goes on, and there's not much you can do about it. Also, I noticed my last set of dreads, as time went on, my roots would start to kind of buckle and loop onto themselves like this. And there's also really not that much you can do to prevent that. It's just, it's just gonna happen. You cannot have 100% control over your dreads. It's kind of a hairstyle that you have to live and let live. So if you're gonna crochet hook your loops, you should do it no more than once every 2 weeks, and once a month would probably be ideal to just manage that. Naturally, you can do just some little spot work. Like I'll find a weak spot in one of my dreads right now, and I'll just crochet hook it, but I won't be crochet hooking for hours every day. That's not good. And if you don't want to crochet hook your loops, by all means, you don't have to. You can kind of palm roll them sometimes, which may or may not help. It might help accelerate them tightening onto each other. But generally, they seem to appear at about 6 months, and they last, 2 to 6 months of your locking process. And it's kind of like your dreads puberty. It's like, what's going to happen? It's going to loop, it's going to grow, it's going to turn into tighter, more mature, and more beautiful locks. So it'll happen. It happens if you've got straight hair. Like my hair is pretty loop prone, so I'm gonna be battling those loops forever. But yeah, it's totally viable to leave your loops alone and not do anything. Your hair will lock just fine. In fact, one time, I just want to show this fun little story. One time, this girl who I did maintenance on, she had let her hair go, so it was like like a lot of loose hair. And she had this little tendril of hair right above her ear, and it was maybe a few strands of hair like this, and it formed this tiny little looped dreadlock, like out of, maybe like this much hair. And it was the cutest thing I ever saw. I told her she should, snip it and like glue stick it onto a paper and put it in a frame, because it was like so cute. Loops can be cute, guys. They're not something that you necessarily have to fight unless you have a different aesthetic you want for your locks. So I hope this kind of explained loops and why they happen. I am not claiming to have the be-all end-all answer to why loops happen. I'm not claiming to be 100% correct on what happens with them. I'm just sharing what I've observed and seen and worked with. So yeah, I hope this kind of covered that topic for you. Okay, have a great day, guys. Bye.